G'day everybody, this is Adam from Titanic, A History. Some information you might not know. A bit of a long title and I am working on it. Happy New Year everybody, and I hope you had a good Christmas. Sorry it has been so long since I did put out an episode. I know the last one was about the quick facts, and it was received really well, so thank you all for your generous watching, I guess, of that. Not watching, you listen to it. Listen to that episode. It sort of moved me to do a lot more of the history rather than the myths, and I may change the title of the podcast as well based on that. So it was a big eye-opener for me. Before I go on to the topic of today, which is the first of the Guaranty Group that I'll be talking about, guys, as you know, I love doing this, and I want to make this really a full-time type of thing. To research one of these episodes, especially the one that I'm about to bring you, it took quite a long time, and I went through over probably 100 to 200 links, reading that information. So you could say it took me about 2 weeks all up to actually just write the notes for this episode. So it does take a long time, and so if you can support the show, please head to the Patreon link that's in the show notes, or the eBay link. Guys, honestly, $1 would be fantastic, and it will show me that it's kind of appreciated, if you know what I mean. But I mean, all in all, I'm going to keep doing this. I love the Titanic. I love what it is. I'm building the website at the moment as I go, and the website's going to have information on the Titanic. It's going to have profiles. It's going to have the show notes of how I wrote it up. It's going to have all that information. It's going to have the profiles that I do. So today's profile will be listed on the website, as well as I'll pop it on the Facebook page. So please jump on the Facebook page as well if you so desire. Would love that. Hit us up and comment and tell us what you think about the show. Now, as I said, guys, today I'll be talking about the Guaranty Group. What was the Guaranty Group? Now, this was a group of 9 guys that worked for Harland & Wolff. Now, these 9 guys were from the upwards of 15,000 people that worked building the Titanic and the Olympic and later on the Britannic. These guys were picked as they were the best in their fields, or their respective fields, to go on a ship, in this case the Titanic, on their maiden voyage, to finish any unfinished work and to check whether there was any work that needed to be done after the maiden voyage, and to sort of help with any issues that arose on the maiden voyage as well. So these guys were literally there and on the spot if there was any issues. Now, they were given passenger accommodation, second or first class accommodation, but that didn't stop them from being able to move around the ship as they needed to get to the different areas. They were crew, but yeah, they had the passenger accommodation. Now, there was 9 of them, and I'm actually going to talk about them one by one. I was hoping to do like a full episode on each of them, but I actually want to pay attention to them sort of personally, if you know what I mean, to get to know these individuals, to get to know who they were. These were real people. They weren't just numbers on a piece of paper, or I think most people sort of take in the tragedy of the Titanic as one big thing. They sort of don't look into it as a tragedy that affected a lot more than just the 1,500 odd people that died on the Titanic, 1,523. It affected so many more people connected to the ship, the families, the friends, the wives, everyone. I mean, it probably affected tens of thousands of people, just not those people that died on the ship. Now, we're going to talk about a young man by the name of Ennis Hastings Watson. he was the youngest of the Guaranty Group. From everything that I can find, he was around 17 or 18 years old. I have found a couple of reports where he was 15, and that wouldn't surprise me that someone that young had an apprenticeship working, because that's sort of what you did back then. You sort of did your schooling and then found a trade, and that's how sort of life worked. Now, but from all accounts, I can find that he was 18 or 19. Now, Ennis Hastings Watson, he was actually born in Northern Ireland in 1894. Now, he was an apprentice electrician for Harlan and Wolff. He was born on the 5th of May. It's kind of interesting when you're doing this research that it actually tells you the address that these people lived at, and when you actually look at newspaper articles, it actually says blah 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 from this street address. I mean, come on, can you imagine these days if you looked at a Facebook article and said that this is where I live? It would be a nightmare. Now, he did have two parents. He, of course, had two parents, but they were alive at the time. His father, James Watson, he was born in around 1856, and his occupation was a shipwright. So, as you can imagine, Ernest from a very young age would have been sort of surrounded by the talk of ships and being at sea and what type of mechanics and all that were in shipbuilding. His mother was Sarah Piper, I think it was, and she was born about 1857, so very close in ages, and they were both natives of East Belfast. They had 8 children, which did include Ennis, and they were members of the Church of Ireland. Now, that was a new one for me when I was looking this up, because a lot of people building the Titanic were Christians, Catholics, and Catholic. It was a very Catholic sort of ship to be built, and most people that were building it were Catholics, and Protestants weren't sort of liked all that much. But I mean, this is just how it is, and from what I can find, I mean, I don't believe there was much hatred towards the Church of Ireland. I mean, it's the first time I've sort of ever heard of it. But who knows? He could have had a bit of misgivings being a different religion than everybody else. But yeah, it's one of those things, I guess, a new thing when you're doing research like this. Growing up, Ernest, he was a serious young fella. I mean, from what I could find, he really didn't have a lot of time for a social life. He studied a lot. He was very I can talk a little bit here. He was very academic. Before he started his apprenticeship at Harlan and Wolff, he actually studied a few different things. Studying, what did he study here? He studied practical mathematics and art. Now, of course, the mathematics would have come in handy with his electrical work and things like that, but he also did that bit of art, which was quite interesting. I mean, he would have had an open mind doing that type of thing. And after completing that, he actually started studying electrical engineering and electrics and that type of thing at the Belfast